Alrighty, in this video today what we are learning is how to factor quadratic polynomials. The objectives that I have are to factor a common monomial from a polynomial. That's actually all you're going to see in this first video, but through the course of the videos we'll also learn to factor trinomials, to use pattern recognition to factor special products, and lastly to write and factor quadratic polynomials representing real-world situations. So let's begin with our first objective. We need to define what it is to factor. Factoring is just a method of expressing a polynomial as a product of polynomials. Factoring is essentially the inverse operation of distribution. That means when we factor, we are undoing distribution. So when you're trying to find the greatest common factor, it's going to be sometimes abbreviated GCF, and it is from a polynomial, it's the product of all the factors shared by every term in that polynomial. So it is the largest polynomial that you could divide into every term. Let's practice doing this together. Here we have to factor both this first polynomial A and our polynomial B. Let's begin. You always want to determine a GCF. You won't always have one, but if you are factoring, you always want to try and find the GCF. So looking at the first polynomial, what is the greatest number that can go into 15 and to 45? The greatest number that can go in, or that can divide in, is 15. Now, what is the largest variable that you could divide in? Well, the largest that you could divide into both would just be x. You couldn't divide x squared into that second term. X would be the largest. So that means that our GCF is 15x. That is the largest factor that you could divide into each of those terms evenly. Now we begin to rewrite this. We're going to factor out that GCF from each term, and that means to divide it out, to undo the distribution. So 15x squared divided by 15x, that's our GCF, and 45x divided by 15x. We're going to pull out that GCF, undo the distribution, so the 15x is on the outside, and what is left is the result of that division. The first term would just be x, and the second term would be 3. You could check, and I encourage you to do so, that if you distributed the 15x back into that binomial, you would get what you started with. 15x times x is 15x squared. 15x times 3 is in fact 45x. So we have correctly factored out our GCF. Now let's practice with the second one. This one looks a little bit different because we have really, there are just the two terms, but our terms have both subtraction and multiplication occurring. But again, what is the greatest common factor associated with both of those? Well, if you look, they both have the 3x minus 7. It's 2x times 3x minus 7. And it's 5 times 3x minus 7. So that is the greatest factor that they have in common. Now, let's divide that out of each term. That would look like dividing 2x times 3x minus 7 by 3x minus 7, and 5x times 3x minus 7 divided by 3x minus 7. That's going to eliminate the 3x minus 7, and all that will be left is the 2x and the 5. The 2x and the 5 now become a binomial multiplied by our GCF. And that is all for factoring out GCFs. We're going to continue with more factoring in later videos.